Hello everybody. Today a look at an interesting fixed blade from the Japanese company G Sakai. So you can see here G Sakai, and it's called the Sabi Knife 1. First a bit of background. So it's a Japanese company whose logo is, you can see there, G Sakai with I think very appropriate, a samurai in their logo. Okay. I already discussed a knife from them before. It's this one, which is now called the Model 10SC. Quite a big folder, but it exists in smaller ones. The one that I have doesn't have the stack handle, but it's black micarta, and it was distributed in the West by Spyderco some years ago. And in fact, I bring this up because it's no coincidence that it was Spyderco. In fact, G Sakai is more appreciated, you could say, as an outsourcing partner, an OEM for Western brands. So Spyderco and Almar and a few others have outsourced a number of their knives to G Sakai, being a high quality Japanese manufacturing partner. And so it's well possible that one of your knives is actually made by them without you knowing. Now they have also their own collection which have a very good reputation. I think that they are a bit underappreciated in the West. They don't have so much discussion around them. So, and I hope to rectify this with this little clip. So the one that I have is here, is the one at the bottom of the photo. But it exists also with a combo edge, as you can see. And it is in fact a family of knives, with again the one that I have is here. There is a somewhat smaller one, but probably the handle is small. Of all three are very close, but this one has a less wide blade. And then there is quite a bigger beast as well, which is a Sabi Knife 3, so 1, 2, 3. Okay, going back now to the knife in question. So sorry, I had to put my iPad away. A few hard facts. First, it's 190 millimeter or 7.5 inches long. The blade is only 2.5 millimeter thick, which I think is very useful for its main use, as we come back to. The length of the blade, they say 92 millimeters or 3.6 inches. Well, and that is more or less when you go from here, the tip, to you could say in essence here at the handle. But when you look at the real cutting edge, well, at least if you see that in a straight line, it's around 80 millimeters, the real cutting edge. The handle is ebony, a very nice dark ebony with stainless fasteners. The stainless part is one of the more interesting things about it, because indeed the steel is H1. Spyderco has one or two fixed blades in H1. This is the only other one I know about. What is interesting about H1 is, well, this is one of those completely stainless steels. They have little or no carbon. Instead they have nitrogen, which in some way that escapes me, but but in reality is true, makes the knife truly stainless. I mean, stainless also in a saltwater environment. And that is why, together with this thin stock of the blade, I think this is a very interesting knife for outdoor cooking, and because it will always be clean, it will never rust. And I mean, from what people say, that the property of the rust resistance of H1 is so good that if this through some time warp had been in the Titanic, well, it would still not have rust. Also typical for H1 knives is that the grind is always hollow. It's very difficult to have a flat grind on H1 because it has quite unusual properties. In fact, under stress or while you're cutting, it gets harder. So in fact it would be difficult to do a flat grind without the blade warping. That's why in practice they're always hollow ground, which is in fact between two big grinding wheels that the knife is put. So, okay, so here that's what I think makes this interesting, while the fact that these fasteners are also stainless. Ah yes, the sheath is made from some fiberglass composite. You see the logo, the samurai logo is neatly there. The lock is very much tech lock like. They call it a core lock, I believe, which, well, I think it's the same, is in essence the same kind of thing. I don't think it will not be easy to reverse this 90 degrees, because as you can see the screws just stick out a tiny bit. Well, maybe you can, I've not tried it, but I think that the, how you call that, the lock itself would maybe deform a bit against these screws. There are also plenty of holes so that you can wrap it against the backpack. The knife fits pretty well. You can see it will never get loose. It has a tiny bit of wobble, as you can hear. It's not dangerous anyway, but that yeah, that destroys a bit the luxury feeling we have with it. What is interesting also, it is a full tang knife, so it's one big lump of metal with handles on it, making it always the strongest choice. With here the tang sticking out, so you can put quite a big lanyard in it should you want. Yes, the weight is 100 grams, so it's pretty light actually, while it's full tang, and of course the thin stock helps with that. The sheet is around 70 grams, so it's 170 in total. So in fact, for when it comes to weight, it's something you can always have with you. In ounces, for those who are not used to metric, that's 3.5 ounces for the blade, and 6 ounces blade and sheet together, roughly speaking. So indeed, I think a pretty nice knife with a very good hand holding, thanks to this very deep choil here. And here it has jimping at the top, which you've already noticed, I guess. So you can hold it close with, and your fingers are really sturdy here. The kind of blade shape resembles, you could say, those Diba kind of Chinese, so what do I say, Japanese cooking knives, and indeed it cuts pretty well. The hardness is around 56-57, it's not extremely hard, and it's quite sharpenable. So while you can use it indeed for some general outdoor usage, H1 is not the last word in toughness, in edge holding, I would rather say. So that's this, together with the fact of the stainlessness and the thin stock, I think really outdoor cookery is one of the main interesting things that you can do with it, and some lighter general work. We will soon do some comparisons. In fact, I think the most interesting comparison I had was for roughly the same price. You have one of my absolute favorite fixed blades, and I have a separate video on this which I urge you to check out if you don't know this blade. This is the Spyderco Moran, designed by master knife maker Bill Moran. Well, the late Bill Moran. It was, I believe, the first fixed blade that Spyderco had in production, and it's already in production since a long time. These days it has a little spider hole for the, you could say, for the family trademark. The old ones didn't have that, and this is a special one with some orange in the handle, but usually the handle is all black. I like this, prefer this in fact over my nicer looking kind of Scandinavian knives, while it's not full tang, it's not the sturdiest, because it's so light and perfectly balanced and so useful for general utility. The blade is a bit thicker at 3 mm, which is barely visible. You notice it a bit. However, it makes a bit of a difference while you cut. This is as a flat grind, which I prefer. It has VG10 steel, which is usually a pretty good steel. Now, I unfortunately had with one of my other knives, a folder, that VG10 rusted on me. It was in a very hot area close to the sea, and I think it was my sweat that came into my pocket and really rusted the blade in one day time because of. And that is something you would never have with this. So when really food is a major issue, then then VG10 really has a limitation. But in general, this is a fantastic knife. And roughly the same price as the G Sakai. Which one is the prettiest? Well, probably the G Sakai is a bit prettier. When it comes to hand holding, the G Sakai is probably also at least as good as the Moran. It's very cleverly done with those roundings here. Your fingers very naturally fall into it, and there is enough space left if you have larger hands, or even if you have smaller hands, you can really get a good grip. Also interesting is, if you would grip it a bit further, imagine if there's something really tiny you want to cut, it also works pretty well like that. So, a cutting demo, but no, for me you will never see boring papers being sliced. In fact, I have to feed the rabbits soon, and the rabbits, they like apples and carrots. So, to give you here an idea, and I don't really clean the carrot, these are rabbits after all, this goes extremely well. As you may, it's actually not so simple to cut while I look through the camera, I notice. This goes really well. If I do this with the Spyderco, it goes very well as well, of course, but you feel it has a bit more resistance, and that is really because the Spyderco is a bit thicker to start with, and it is a flat grind, while this gets very hollow. So for the smaller smaller objects, the G Sakai is a really seriously good slicer. Now, for something bigger, let's have a look here at the apple. Put this here away. Again, it's a bit annoying to cut while I look through the camera. That goes well enough. You notice then, however, that the fact that the cutting edge is only 80 millimeters becomes a bit on the limit, you could say, when you cut through an apple. And now let's continue with the Spyderco. Well, it also goes very well, and I think also here, strangely enough, and that must then be also the thinness, the G Sakai has a bit less resistance. Now here I also notice that if I would have cut the apple first in two with the Spyderco, the extra length that the Spyderco had is really practical. So, taking the G Sakai again. Yes, it is definitely lighter to cut. Yes, so it has, and in fact, my dear audience, I didn't compare them before this video. I thought they would be closer. So indeed, very interesting. Now still, I would say in general, the bigger cutting edge of the Spyderco makes it more universal, while if you put them like this, it seems shorter, but really the cutting edge, the Spyderco is a bit more and has a bit more thickness. However, the G Sakai being a full tank construction, it is by its very nature sturdier. Then again, the VG10 will hold an edge from the Spyderco, will hold an edge longer than the H1. And I mentioned already the VG10, normally stainless, but watch out with sweat and definitely with sea salt. The H1 totally independent, you could, doesn't feel anything from the elements. So all in all, I think, and I hope that I convince you with this, the G Sakai Sabi Knife 1, I forgot to say that Sabi Knife, it means rust-proof. Sabi Knife is a kind of Japanese for rust-proof, so that is what it means. I think it is really a very interesting fixed blade for lighter utility, but definitely for food. For a bit heavier work and general work, still a slight preference to the Moran, but This one comes remarkably close. It's a keeper. In fact, you've seen, if you're following me for a while, you know that I've got too many knives, and I'm seriously thinking of reducing my collection to a number of essentials, and I know that the G Sakai is one that I will keep. So I hope you found this interesting, a brand to discover if you haven't tried it yet, and this one, not so expensive either, is really worth your interest. Feel free to leave feedback.